I'm Philadelphia sports comedian Joe Conklin, and you're listening to the True Philadelphia Podcast with Matt O'Donnell.
When I asked Joe Conklin where he wanted to meet me for this podcast, he suggested the New Wave Cafe in South Philadelphia, a gritty yet sophisticated bar with lots of drinks, high tops, TVs, a pool table, and tons of personality, a lot like Joe Conklin. He does not deviate when it comes to his Philadelphia story. There were no Philadelphia sports comedians when he was growing up, so he worked his rear off, became one, and became the best at it. He transforms himself into the people we cheer for, the people we boo, and the people we wish would have never left our sports universe. Prepare for some laughs as Joe Conklin helps us mark Season 3, Episode 1 of the True Philadelphia Podcast. Here with Joe Conklin, Philadelphia sports comedian, WIP contributor, host of the Comedy Night at the Parks Casino. Did I miss anything?
That's about right for now.
Yeah. Now we can delve into other things later, I guess.
Sure, whatever you need, man.
We're at the New Wave Cafe in South Philadelphia, and we're having a couple of cups of coffee, and it's still morning, and we're going to talk about Joe Conklin.
That's a tough one. I usually want to talk about everybody else.
So listen, to top things off, I'm always curious when I watch comedy, particularly with yours. I know it's changed. Has it become more difficult? What's it like being a comedian these days with the hypersensitivity, I guess, out there?
Being in the broadcast industry, how much everything has changed. Now, you're straight news, so but your little banter has always been light, and sometimes jokes like some of your guys can get away with more than others. But it's all changed as far as you got to watch what you say. No ethnic references anymore, no sexist references anymore. Makes you work a little harder. You got to still be as funny and just kind of tighten it up a little.
Do you have something sort of running in the back of your head that's like an editor now that you didn't have before?
Two things. Number one, everything's scripted for me because I'm a comedian at the station. Everything's scripted, and I have to have Morgani read all my scripts before they're approved and allowed on the air.
So you say that, I think, on your Twitter page, and I thought you were kidding.
Oh, no. It's all true. So somebody's got to take the hit if they don't catch it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, hey, it was there. I was approved. And I think that Janet Jackson changed all this in 2004 or whatever it was. There was a big lawsuit with CBS. And we were CBS up until a year ago.
You're talking about the Super Bowl Nipplegate?
Correct. And millions of dollars in fines, and now they don't want to pay any fines anymore. And big thing, I'm talking about the radio industry now. That affected the radio industry. Howard Stern in a big way. CBS paid a ton of fines for Howard. So as a result, if you're employing a comedian, you're going to have him under some restraints. And that's the best way that I can address the question you're talking about. I don't know if you were referring to the stand-up world.
Well, that too. I mean, what's it like standing there in front of a crowd and knowing that there at any night could be somebody who's going to have a very big problem with something that you say that everyone else would be okay with?
Of course. I've always worked clean on stage, off stage, not so much. But I've always done corporate luncheons and things like that where you can get paid. So I didn't have a whole lot of problem doing keeping my live set clean. And yeah, sexual innuendo, sometimes you got to watch. Like I said, ethnic stuff, you can't even, you got to kind of take it out. You have to take it out of your act and not put it in. Yeah, you're right. Everything's different now. You have to put it through a certain lens. But I've kind of been used to that for a while, working during the day. As opposed to in nightclubs. I'm not really a nightclub comedian. I did that for a while when I started. That's a tougher world. You got to be tougher all over. You got to be able to, walk into a place kind of like this where there's a bar where people don't want to see you. and you got to, try to make them laugh, and they're turning their back, and they're doing other things. They're playing pool.
Sort of like you're crashing people's Thanksgiving dinner all the time.
Very similar to that. When you're starting out in clubs, that's a rougher thing. When you graduate out of the clubs and get to I wouldn't even say bigger venues, I'd say different venues. The fact that I'm on the radio has given me a visibility where people will hire me for a private party, like a luncheon. And I've been doing those for a long time. So if you work luncheons, if you work during the day, you're used to working fairly clean. They just want to hear the voices and then don't offend. And like you said, you got to watch.
So you don't really run into hecklers often at all. And if you do, do you have this sort of a plan in mind if you do?
When you're talking about a heckler in a nightclub, you're talking about somebody who's either drunk or has too much to drink, or somebody that wants to be part of the show. And you get one or two give and takes with a heckler, and then you need somebody from the club to help you out because you don't want to do the heckling all night. A couple pops is fine. Boom, boom, move on. Let me get back to my material. Other people paid to see me, not you. So that's kind of the mentality of it. But you have to have a couple of pops ready, like, oh yeah, and nowadays they have to be clean. When you're in the club and somebody's coming at you, I got some really foul things to say right back. If somebody curses at me, I got a better curse waiting for them. You know what I mean? Or insults me, I got an insult coming back at them.
How about this? Joe, you suck.
You suck, yeah. Well, that's the same thing so-and-so said to me, you know what I'm saying? You can go start talking about them personally. Yeah,
and that sort of ends things quickly, right? When you get personal.
You hope one or two exchanges ends things. If it doesn't, you need help from the club to say, dude, you got to shut up or you're leaving. You know what I mean? But if you go back and forth, like I said, more than a few times, it just becomes a different show. Then it's something you don't want. You come in with your show, your set. You don't want the guy to derail you. Yeah, hecklers suck, man. It's horrible. And you don't get them at a luncheon because you're usually in people's workplace.
Sure,
and they're not in there yelling stuff out.
When getting the salad and they're like, oh.
Yeah, they're not, when their boss is right in the room. Sure. Now, the other thing that's the drag on that is some people don't want to laugh in front of their coworkers and bosses at certain material, or don't want to be seen. Oh my God, I think I'm not. That's why if you do something that's a little off kilter, it's you can bomb real bad in a corporate setting. I had a person somebody just reminded me this last week. I was doing a corporate thing. It was at a picnic at a pharmaceutical company out in Fort Washington area where there's a few of them, and we're doing somebody, they're just entertaining. And a lot of times you get in trouble with the political. And Obama was the president. And, it was post 9/11. And I used to do Barack Obama. I forget what the material was, but I was saying this and that. And in the middle of my routine, the HR person literally comes over and takes the microphone right out of my hand. That's it. That's it. We're going to go back to the balloons over here and the food's over there. I was like, hey.
And all you're doing is just imitating it.
I was basically doing, I was imitating them, but I try to be funny too. I don't just read like you read in the book. There was material there. I forget what it was. It might have been towards the Islam. You know what I mean? Muslim. Who knows? But you gotta walk a straight line. Now, sometimes if you even say Muslim, Islam, well, that's a friendly enough word, isn't it? You would think. But as soon as they hear it, it's a trigger, and this thing's over.
Sure.
So I didn't even say terrorists. You didn't say terrorists.
No, not in the same sentence. You grew up in Olney. You went to Temple. You're a local guy. Do you have any memories or any sort of funny stories you have, like growing up in that neighborhood and going to college and trying to find your way?
Sure. I mean, that's built my entire persona. The fact that I grew up in a row home. And I was just thinking about this the other day. When you think about Philly, they call it a city of neighborhoods. The neighborhoods were really like individual small towns. You didn't really need to go out of Olney. I mean, next door was Longcrest or Logan. You only went them for maybe a travel game, or when you got to high school, you got to meet those guys. But we had everything we needed. It was like Americana right there. Little League Baseball, the candy store, it's got people on your block. It takes a village. You couldn't, you couldn't misbehave on the block. You had 8 parents. Anybody who was sitting out could have corrected you. As far as funny anecdotes, I don't know. I mean, I used to imitate my neighbors, and we have a guy that we do on the radio now. We have a Chip Snapper's Tap Room. We say it's in Kensington, but it was really modeled after where I first drank at Harry's and Pat's, 1 block in either direction of my house, 3rd and Spencer or 2nd and Godfrey. And we had a guy named Ozzy. His name's Jim Osborne. We called him Ozzy. But
anyone who's Osborne is Ozzy.
yeah. So it's kind of named, patterned after Ozzy, but we twanged him a little bit more. We put a little Philly accent, and there's an Irish stable there named Flynn. Well, that's the exact voice of the guy who worked at the candy store at Reynolds Candy Store, Mr. Reynolds. That's a 3rd and Spencer. We just took his voice. So I cast a lot of the voices that I grew up with in my act are still there today. Like we do Billy the Helper. Billy the Helper is a guy who's to help out, who call up and for solutions. You try to help you out with your topics for today. That's my cousin Billy Dykin. It's a real person. Dr. Bob McLaughlin, see. Dr. Bob said he would help out with injuries, see. Athlete gets injured, we diagnose and then recommend therapy. We do, I'm a non-practicing clinical psychologist. We do some surgery and aluminum siding. Now, that is my Uncle Bob McLaughlin, who was a caddy and a worker at the Bud plant. Posthumously, we made him a doctor.
That was nice of you.
It was just a good voice. So I do draw from, the old experiences, sure.
When did you realize you could imitate people?
When I was a little kid, like 5, 6 years old.
Is this Howard Cosell, I think, was the story?
Yeah, Howard Cosell was one of the first celebrity voices. First of all, it's got to be in my genes. Both my parents were singers. Everybody in our house could sing. They were all in the choir. They're still performers. We had both of my brothers sing in bands. My sister sings at funerals and weddings. So she still performs. She runs the choir at church. So we're a singing family. So we have the vocal cords and the genes of that. I never really was a big choir person. I lasted one day, but and we all mimic people in our house. I'm the 6th of 7, so this is all coming down.
4 of them are girls, right?
4 girls, 3 boys, 2 brothers. And so we were always doing voices. My father used to imitate the bishop, Bishop Graham. The bishop would call the house because my dad sang funerals at church. He would get a stipend as a side job. And so impressions and getting laughs was the thing in our house growing up. It's kind of how you made your value, you know what I mean? How your worth, you got to be funny, you got to do some voices. So it was kind of like I've been doing them since I can remember.
So when I watch you, like videotapes, particularly during your act, when I see you imitate someone, you start to look like them. It's almost like there's a metamorphosis, especially like Charles Barkley. You start to look like.
So funny. I'm glad you said that. I guess that's good. I don't know what happens. I know that other voice guys actively do that. I don't think I don't know. I mean, I do whatever I got to do to get there, Like if I'm going to do Joel Embiid, I don't know if I look like him right now. Do I look tired? Do I look exhausted? I don't want anybody to boo me. But tough, gritty. I don't know if I turn into the person. I just try to get to that spot. You know what I mean? Sure. Spot on the floor.
Tell me the process. So you find someone you want to imitate, someone who's colorful, obviously. What happens next?
You start listening to them, and I would love to say that I listen over and over and over, but I really don't. I'll listen one time, and then I'll go about my day, and I'm going to get somebody that you wind up like if somebody's got a commercial over and over, or there's a sound bite that keeps being played for a week, you know what I mean? Or it's a top news story. That's when just things keep coming back. And at the same time, not only are they in my head, they're in everybody's head. So the comedy, well, we took a 4-credit course at Temple, humor writing. The first rule of comedy is or RSVP is one of the little acronyms or whatever. First is R, recognition. If nobody knows what you're talking about, it can't be funny because they don't know. Oh, I don't get it. I don't know what to. So you have to do, if I'm going to imitate somebody, you got to imitate somebody who everybody else knows. Sure. You know what I mean? Or you'd have to set everything up. So you kind of want to go after people who everybody is hearing, everybody is seeing. They're in the news. They are the story. Then you have to, you got to get there somehow. You got to keep playing. Some people you never get. Some people you'll get only after you hear somebody else do their impression of them. And they say, oh, I never heard that part. He's tweaking it over here. I always went in from the front. He's going from the side. You know what I mean? Like where they land in the vocal range.
Is there one you never got?
Well, that's what I was talking about. I remember I never got John Madden until I saw Caliendo start doing them. Okay. I mean, I was going to put an ad in the paper for somebody to do John Madden because I couldn't get him down, and I was trying them in different things. And, Brett Favre, you got the great Brett Favre, and the Packers and the Cubs and the Vikings, and so on and so on. But it wasn't until Caliendo broke the code, so to speak. And I don't know how to describe it. I heard something different, and I just started doing that. And then you can go back around and grab more from the front, whether it's texture or cadence or...
And the phrasing really is important, what you're saying, right?
Yeah, words, the catchphrases and words. I think more than anything is the sound and the cadence. Like, for example, Merrill Reese. Like, Merrill Reese, thank you, Matt. It's great to sit here with you. I only watch Channel 6. See, now I put that in. He don't do that. But for some reason, he might do that. And when he gets excited, you want him to get excited and start going in the high pitch. But if you listen, if I hear Merrill Reese's voice on a commercial in the background in another room, like two rooms away, all you hear,
there's a lot of bass, right?
A lot of what?
It's more like there's some treble going on. It's like it's hitting the treble.
No, but I'm talking about the cadence.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He pops, he's in and out, and if you get the flow of that and make the right sound, you can get real close to the actual duplication of the voice without even saying words.
It's almost like he's riding a horse.
Yeah. Whoa! And that horse's name is Carson Wentz.
People get mad when you imitate them, right?
No.
No one's ever said, stop that.
I won't say never. Mostly people are flattered. But initially, I've done a couple hundred voices of people around here probably. I've had many different reactions. Merrill, I don't know where he was. I wasn't around when I first started doing them, but by the time I met him, he was always real cool with me. I just love your impression. I think it's fantastic. But Bill Campbell, when I first was not too far away from Merrill as far as the votes down deep in the vocals, but he throw a little helping of mashed potatoes on top for Bill Campbell. Oh my, are you kidding me? So I started doing Bill on the morning show, and I was doing them all the time. And he was still working there, but he was like coming back part-time or something.
You'd run into him in the hallway.
I would run into him in the hallway, and Morgani says, Campbell's pissed at you. He doesn't like it. So I went over and confronted him. I introduced myself. He says, Bill, I'm Joe Conklin. I've been imitating you on the... I know who you are, Joe. No, that was somebody different. What did he say? Yeah. No, I don't... I heard you might have been upset. I wanted to make sure you're fine with it. No, I'm fine with it. It's my daughter who's upset, and she's an attorney. But after a while, about 6 months, a year, Bill Campbell and I became close friends. I would out to lunch with him a couple times a year. I used to do his banquet every year, and he was a great guy. And I guess, people just kept coming up to him. I guess he had a relent and just fall and
Spot on. You have to appreciate the invitation. I think Andy Reid might be another guy that sort of warmed up to you or needed some time.
Yeah, well, the sports writers banquet was always the big event. That was kind of my Super Bowl because the principals were right there. Athletes, coaches, players were sitting, and I had to do it in front of them because I'm going to do it on the radio.
Is that frightening?
Oh, it's exciting. It's thrilling.
It's
a smidge frightening, but I know I'm going to do it, and I'm just it's like, come on, you got to get out there, go up, walk on the tightrope a little bit. That was always fun. But Reid, I think we pounded him a little too hard with fetch. Yeah, did you say something about it? Yeah, I used to do Andy Reid. Hey, when the chips are down, I'll eat them. But I think what happened was he got a little sensitive, and they would complain about me at the banquet. Oh, we're not sending people if Conklin's going to be pounding us. Why would we do that? We send our coach there, and you're gonna trash us. So there was always a little little push pull.
Talk about the Philadelphia sports fan. How would you describe this individual to people in another part of the world that doesn't have any biases whatsoever?
Honestly, it's changed. I think there is a sport. Now there's the. I've been doing this my whole life. I've obviously here my whole life. I grew up in the late '70s into the '80s when there wasn't the celebrated Philadelphia sports band, the public caller to WIP, the guy who dresses up. There was just mean people, right? Or I remember the old guys. They did the first thing I saw as a kid was they were burning a Dallas Cowboy jersey in effigy with a dummy inside it. I was like, oh my God, that really happens? They were at the playground down the street from my house.
I thought you were going to say it was at like the 700 level or something. It was at the playground.
No, they were in the neighborhood. I saw, when I was a kid going to games, I saw Eagles fans carrying drunks into the stadium. I saw these guys sneaking a keg of beer into the stadium on a wheelchair. Guy was sitting on a wheelchair. He was sitting on the keg, and they wheeled him in. So I just know that Philadelphians are tough. We're jagged edge. We want people to hustle, to earn their money. And sports just kind of exploded out of that. Now, with the Philadelphia sports fan, you're talking about people that boo or not boo or praise. I think what you have now is, and I don't complain about it, but you have celebrity fans now, and you have the group of Philadelphia fans that have a reputation now. So it's kind of changed.
Factioned
into something. It's not really faction. It wasn't celebrated before. It was just kind of over here. Now it's in the front. Oh, you better prove something. Us, the fans. Nobody talked about the fans as a force at all, ever. Now it's a big thing. Well, you got something happening right now today. You got a real issue with Joel Embiid. He actually got booed, and he started complaining. We're going to see what happens tonight. He shushed the fans, and he used a profanity. Basically gave them the finger, but he didn't do that. But that's what so we'll see if he gets booed tonight. Now, the Sixers fans are a lot different than they were when I was growing up. They're too forgiving. They praised tanking, which is bull. You know what I mean? Losing on
Sam Hinkie died for our sins kind of stuff.
Really? You got that faction. That's a new fan. That's not a Philadelphia. I don't know what that is, to be honest with you. That's somebody that's foreign to me.
Let me throw this at you. The change in venues, the nicer stadiums, the more money it costs to go to these games, has that created a different type of fan? And not necessarily the ones who are really the big supporters, but the ones that just so happen to have the chance to buy the tickets.
Yes, there's a lot of truth in that. There's also, the generational change. Look at them. Everybody wants to be a star. Everybody's on camera. People walk around on the street taping themselves. You don't even
They're not doing anything.
I don't get it. You watch people on the street. A girl's taking a picture. A guy's walking down talking to himself. So
Does that creep you out?
It's just odd. It makes me feel a little old. Like, what's happening? What is going on here?
Well, my thing is, like, let's say the aliens finally come, because everyone's wondering, when are they going to discover us and start, poking and prodding us? And they get here, and everyone's like this, and they're like, where's the next place we can go? Let's get out of here. Let's refuel and go.
Yeah, there's some of that. I feel that way sometimes. It's like, what has happened to the world? And what has happened to the Philadelphia sports fan? I think at heart we are smart, and we're allowed to boo because we care about it. And really, bottom line is, if you show hustle, if you show desire, that's the kind of person we want. If you have talent and you act like you're above us, then we're going to boo you. And they booed the greatest baseball player that ever played, Mike Schmidt. That's him. Super talent, but haughty. And Hall of Famer. I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm going to tell you, when I played the game, I wound up in the Hall of Fame. Now, he's a guy who's on TV now, and he can't help stepping in it every single time he opens his mouth. He just puts himself above. I'm lofty. I'm above all of you commoners. And he is, but you don't have to say it. You want to, Philadelphians, we want you to be down to earth. We want you to be with us, with the peeps.
You mentioned Joel Embiid, and he has this big thing with social media and Twitter, and he's very good at it in many, many ways. And you mentioned the incident with the shushing, and I think what we've finally seen is that there is a massive reverb or reflex that can happen when you push at social media the wrong way, and it can send things back in your face at high speeds. And that, in and of itself, may be another way that the fan has changed, too. What do you think about that?
There's no question. I mean, I'm not a big social media person just because I look at it as more work to do. I like to do my job and then go home and be off sometimes. And us in the media, you got to do your job and then you got to do it again on social media. So it's a little crazy. Now, it has opened up doors for many entertainers, many on-air people, many comedians who work it. And I think it's great because you can go around the corner now. You don't have to go through traditional channels. Look at these kids. Look at these stars. Look at these nobodies come out of nowhere. The guy who's the lead singer for Journey now is Asian guy.
That's a great story.
Who they saw on YouTube. Yeah. And so I think that part is great. And bam, you can really affect on social media. What was your question again?
We're talking about how, with the cost of tickets and the nicer venues, and then also the hypersensitivity of, anything that you do or say on Twitter can really, or anything you just do on the court that may not have been caught by the cameras, someone can see, they can videotape it, and maybe the players are being more cautious than they were before, and not having as much fun.
They should. I think so. I think that can only get you in trouble. That's one of the reasons I stay off it. I mean, I got too much to lose. I already have a job, So I just leave it alone. But yeah, and you got a guy, for lack of a better word, a 700 level guy or whatever, and he's got the social media just waiting for somebody to mess up, like an Embiid, and you're engaging, and Embiid comes back at him. Boom, that guy's got something, a nobody can ruin a multi-million-dollar superstar. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I think it really can affect. I think it definitely has an effect.
Does that scare you in a way? Just because you're not on social media, it can still happen to you.
Well,
one thing that someone finds, and there's a pile-on mentality, and then these people are like, "Oh, let's get this guy fired."
It scares me if I put my foot in there and step in it. I'm always worried about stepping in it a little bit. That's why I kind of, you don't want to leave yourself too much exposure. Hey, I walk the straight line. I pay my taxes. Come after me, whatever. Does it worry me? Not really, because I don't do anything wrong. I'm not worried about certain behavior. If I was doing behavior that I shouldn't be doing, then yeah, you got to watch out because, like you said, somebody's going to be taping you and putting it up there. Is that the kind of stuff you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm always thinking about because I do a live show 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and at any moment I could do something that may not seem wrong at that moment, but can lead to me losing my job the next day. Or maybe even that day.
I see what you're saying. You're talking about within your broadcast. If you get caught either with a throwaway comment or doing something with your mug,
That you don't mean as anything,
and somebody sees it, a viewer, they can go and put that on social media, and it blows it up. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I hate it. I hate that. I don't think that's fair. But we're out there. We're exposed.
Yeah, they say if you want to do X, Y, and Z, you got to take
leagues. If you want to be in the big leagues and get paid the big bucks and all that kind of stuff, you got to take what goes along with it.
Bill Cosby. You have a great imitation of him. You actually met him a couple times, did the imitation with him. Any thoughts on him?
Wow.
He's a Philadelphia comedian.
Amazing. My first thought is, man, Philly can't have anything nice. The emblem of our city, our logo, Bill Cosby, even that gets trashed and torn down, ripped apart, soiled. Of course, he's a creep, Cosby, if you want to say that didn't happen and ignore the pattern of all that, and we all know what went down for years and years and years. It's sad. Yeah, sure. I mean, and people held him up as a hero for a long time, and he was great, but that's what you got to watch. You can't put on people in pedestals, right?
Sure, never meet your heroes, right?
Mad O'Donnell, this whole thing has been a disappointment. I loved you for forever.
I asked all the wrong questions.
I met you.
The coffee stunk.
Yeah. So, that's my reaction. I would say typical Philadelphia.
All the politics that has invaded comedy, whether it's regular comedians, the late night comedians, Saturday Night Live, does it make you uncomfortable? Because it wasn't always that way. It's almost like it has to be about politics or it's not going to be fun.
Interesting. I don't agree with that. I think the comic that stays away and just kind of dances around. If you say. It's hard to even say the president's name without striking a nerve somehow.
By the way, you do a wonderful imitation of him.
Well, I appreciate that, and you're doing great, too. You were doing a little, I was worried about, but now, perfect, fantastic. You've come around, and it's true. Am I right? Is Matt here? Great job.
I met him during his campaign at the time, the candidate, Donald Trump, and you seem more like him than he did that day.
He gives you so much, man. It's the gift that keeps on giving. But so divisive and such a third rail. It's wild. People are so emotional about it. It's getting worse too. It's getting worse. We'll see what happens. But
do you have to read a room before you do his imitation?
Yeah, but so basically I'll start in, and I got so much Trump stuff now, and it keeps changing. He makes you work because it's new stuff every day. And you see how much you can take, and I've noticed it's really streaky. Sometimes you can do a lot, and if things are real hot, a lot of people are sick of it. They're sick of it either side, both ways. Because and then you gotta. I have to basically take shots at both sides while I'm doing Trump. So obviously I'm making fun of him, but I'm saying things that he would say to excite. And if I'm ripping Pelosi or a Democrat or something like that, the Republicans are all laughing or the conservatives are all laughing. But then you got to feed both sides,
okay.
And walk down the middle. And then if you stay too long, you can alienate like that. You lose that crowd. So you got to kind of walk the line a little bit. And people say, "Oh my God, that Trump is so good. You could do a whole half hour. You could do a whole show of Trump." You really can't because people don't want it all. You got to get out of that and move on to. I'll do Bernie.
I feel good. I feel fantastic. I'm healthy. I am not having a heart attack.
And Elizabeth, we are Warren. Elizabeth Warren. Whatever. So and
poor. You watch the polls and see someone's. For instance, Pete Buttigieg. Now he's rising in the polls at when we're recording this. So you're like, all right, I better start working on him just in case, right?
I wish I could have that kind of maneuverability. No, I just wish I was good enough to push a button and rise. Oh, well, I'm going to do that. I'll just take it like the Warren thing. You get deluged with the stuff. You know what I mean? And I've heard her enough so I can start getting the voice. You know, I'm not good at females, but I get into an area. You get into a nice zone there. It sounds enough like her. And then the face and the actions. She's got that. She's determined to show her energy. I'm young. I'm bouncy.
Wouldn't you hate to have to be a politician and have to do all these things? You know, all the candidates they have to put on this show, right?
Brutal. I mean, seriously, you guys, you follow. I mean, you're not on the street as much anymore, but I mean, man, they're out there every day. Who'd want it? All
the selfies.
All the selfies and the stops. We're done here. We're going somewhere else. We're going around the clock. I'm surprised that Sanders didn't have another heart attack, or all these people that where they got. You need to have energy. You need to be hard as steel. You know.
Who's your favorite athlete of all time from Philadelphia, or who played in Philadelphia?
Probably Larry Boa. Yeah, he was my brother's favorite growing up, and he's a prototypical Philly athlete. I always liked Jay Johnstone when I was a kid. Play Jay every day. We were down there with the banner. He was a left-handed hitter who platooned in right field in the mid-'70s with Ollie Brown, who was the right-hander. Jay could hit the fastball, man. And he went. They played the Reds in the NLCS or NLS, they call it.
Right?
Yeah, mid-'70s.
Okay.
I think it was 76, 77. He went 7 for 7. He was the only Philly who hit in that series. But I used to love Jay Johnstone, but Larry Boa is the best. And Bob Clark. I mean, Bobby Clark and Larry Boa are the two guys that are overachievers, minimal talent, had Hall of Fame. Well, Boa not. He's 2,000 hits, but he's not quite a Hall of Famer. But he's a Philly Hall of Famer for sure. Bob Clark probably, might be the best athlete in the history of Philadelphia sports for all he's accomplished.
How about Coach?
Let's see, Coach. Yeah, so it's just from a fan, not from a comedian.
Fan or just like ability, whatever. Throw anything out. I don't care.
Well, I think we got Rich Kotite put me on the map. Yeah, hello, we on here? Okay. He was horrible, terrible. Ozark,
Fergozzi. Of course, we got a little controversy. Excuse me.
With Fergozzi. Now, favorite coach, you don't think of that too much.
Of course, Jim Lydham's on the basketball now. He'll point to you, okay? And if you watch, he'll use his pinky over here and then flip him around, get him from the outside, and he'll come back in the back door. I'll poke you right in the eye.
I love Coach Lydham. That might be my favorite coach to do, even more than Reid. I think I got the most mileage out of
Excuse me, Andy Reid. Time Pierce.
But coaches, let's see, best coaches ever.
I like Dallas Green just because when I was growing up and the Phillies won the World Series and it was such an important moment for me as a kid.
Short-lived, though. He came in 80 in the middle, didn't he?
He kind of stuck around after he
2 years and went to Chicago.
But then he came back and he was sort of like an advisor.
Yeah, he was always
It's almost like he was like this guardian angel, sort of overseeing.
Nice guy, too, man. Big man. Looks like a movie star. Sure. Like he could be on the Ponderosa, like Ben Cartwright, or somebody out of Dallas or Dynasty, right? Yeah. I could see him with a cowboy hat, big head of white hair, great guy, big presence, nicest guy in the world. Dallas, yeah. I'll go for that. I'll go for Dallas.
Yeah, great. Favorite comedians? Do you have any comedians that you really look up to? I'm thinking like Rich Little would be a guy that you probably watched a lot.
He was the first guy that I watched and wanted to be like, of course. But in retrospect, Rich Little wasn't much of a comedian. His routines were very simple. He wasn't edgy at all. I mean, George Carlin is a craftsman, with all the words. I love watching Chris Rock work. Eddie Murphy, what an inspiration. I mean, man, Delirious, that crafted that routine from his childhood. I mean, he's brilliant.
I can only get through half of it because my stomach would hurt so much from laughing.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy, and you would say Richard Pryor. I just didn't. they got a show. I think there was a special on with him the other night that I only caught a little bit of it. He was the inspiration for Eddie Murphy. Richard Pryor was great, very courageous guy. But I wasn't. He wasn't really one of my heroes. I wasn't exposed to him. Eddie Murphy I loved, and he doesn't get a lot of play. And of course, because he does voices characters, Mike Myers. The Goldfinger. I mean, what's the name? What's the name?
Wayne's World.
Wait, the 3 movies, blockbuster hits.
Powers.
Austin Powers, baby. I mean, seriously. I mean, movie star. I mean, I just thought he was great. Underrated.
Okay. What do you think is not funny? Philosophical question.
Jokes. I have a problem. I don't have a problem. I think one of the most unfunny things is a guy getting up at a dinner or an event or saying an old joke. Like, hey, this reminds me of a joke. You don't want to announce a joke and then tell a joke. Anything long is horrible. You need to kind of blend it and make it not sound like your joke, or just do it quick. Pacing is real important. Anything that what is not funny, things that aren't timed properly. You can really die if you there's nothing like something that doesn't land well. And part of that, I think, is your approach. And if you take a long time doing it, or don't move on quick enough. Like, you can say stuff. If you know you're going to be in trouble with a line, start the next line right away. Segue out, you know what I mean? And then just move their attention over here. Sure. You never let that sit. If you leave a bomb, you don't want to watch the whole thing explode. So, I don't know, old jokes. As far as comedians not being funny, what's not funny? I don't think anybody has the right to say that, to be honest with you, because I used to think, man, how's that guy on TV? This guy's not funny. But hey, they're on TV and you're not, right? So they're doing something right. So comedy's so subjective. If this particular person has found a pathway to make people laugh, I give them credit. I mean, there's comics that for years, impressionists got a bad name. They still get a bad name. Like regular stand-up comedians, they don't think much of impressionists. They just don't. They think they're like a juggler or a mime. Well, half a step above a mime. But that's fine. What are you gonna do? Argue with the guy?
Not everyone can be a Picasso.
Yeah.
If you were a painter, what would you do?
I don't know. A post-impressionist. That was easy.
Joe Conklin, Philadelphia sports comedian, thanks so much for joining us on the True Philadelphia podcast. We're almost done our coffee.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks to Joe Conklin. May he always keep us laughing and keep preventing our sports heroes from taking themselves too seriously. Thanks to you for listening to this podcast. I truly appreciate it. As I mentioned, this is the beginning of season 3, and just like the creators of the TV show Lost, I have no idea how long this is going or how it will end. So for now, let's enjoy the ride and the people who embody what is great about living in the Philadelphia region. I'm Matt O'Donnell. Long live the True Philadelphia podcast.